Hey, welcome back, my friends, to episode 3 of No Bullshit with Alex Willis, where we're talking about framing it out. How do you do all the things we talked about in this episode, such as creating a belonging environment, challenging your bias, as well as being able to bring people together to get the best out of the team, right? By broadening that definition of diversity. So, 4 tools that I want you to think about that you have to actively practice. Similar to athletics, if you don't practice, you're not going to be good. That's the bottom line, my friends, right? You got to practice to keep going. And so those 4 tools, tool number 1, what's tool number 1? It's simple, but not easy. Tool number 1 is this: ask questions. Don't make assumptions, ask questions. The more we begin to become culturally curious and use this tool of asking questions, we really begin to have great dialogue with people, and we can begin to understand them better because we're not assuming, making assumptions, we're asking those questions, right? So that's tool number 1. Tool number 2, what do I want you to do? Well, tool number 2 is you must be willing to challenge assumptions, right? So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to ask more questions. The next thing is, instead of just jumping to assumptions, I'm going to challenge all of my assumptions. Now, hear me out on this. This is difficult because all of us have what we like to call confirmation bias. Yeesh. What's that? Well, confirmation bias is when you get an idea in your mind is looking for ways to prove itself right. So you're going to look for everything possible to prove that thought in your head of what you thought about that person. So I want to challenge you. How do you get over that? Well, challenge that assumptions. Look for ways to prove yourself wrong. Right? And say, hey, listen, well, maybe they didn't mean anything by that. Well, let me ask more questions, use the first tools, why I challenge those assumptions that I have about the person, about the individual. And by doing this, you can begin to create space to then fill in that space with real information by asking the questions. But if you never challenge your assumptions, you'll never get to asking questions because you'll go on your own information, oftentimes making an ass of yourself, versus pausing, creating space to then fill in that gap with the questions and the responses from the person themselves, right? So what's tool number 3? Well, tool number 3, my friends, is the value of seeing the other person. Seeing the other person. What do I mean by that? I challenge my leaders all the time to lose that comment that people say, hey, I don't see skin color. Hey, I don't see gender. That's bullshit. You have to. Right? Because by not seeing it, you discredit that person's experience in the world. Let me give you an example. If you don't see gender, then you really don't understand the challenge that women have in the construction industry. Please understand, oftentimes they are there by themselves. They are working with crews where there's 1 or 2 women to 1,000 other guys there. And so when I don't see that, I discredit that experience and I don't understand that may be challenging for them. By pausing and seeing the other person, it allows me to offer a little more empathy and compassion. It allows me to step out of my shoes and step into their shoes to see what they're experiencing and what they're going through, to then be able to see how can I challenge my assumptions, ask more questions, and try to bring that together to help build a belonging environment for that individual, right? So what's tool number 4? Tool number 4 that I want you to practice is know when and how to speak out. This is tough, my friends. This is scary, actually, right? Knowing when and how to speak out. So first and foremost, I want you to understand that you have to be safe, and I want you to be in a safe environment first and foremost. But oftentimes as leaders, it's important for us to speak up when we see things going wrong. If you tuned in to the takeoff of this episode, then you know we talked about Construction Dive magazine, where we gave crazy stats about the construction industry, where 65% of people said that they've witnessed a racist incident on site and they've seen racial graffiti, all these crazy numbers and stats. And the shocking thing is no one was willing to say anything. Oftentimes we sit back and we assume someone else is going to do it. And I want to challenge you to speak up. So how do you do that? Well, you don't have to be rude and aggressive. Oftentimes it's pulling the person aside by themselves one-on-one, not even embarrassing them in front of others. And it's really what I like to call you as the leader falling on the sword, my friends, and saying, hey, listen, I know you probably didn't even realize you did this or said this, And I know you being a great leader, you would never intend to do that or harm people. But when you said this, it was kind of interpreted this way, right? So understand, you're pulling that person aside, not embarrassing them in front of the whole group, not calling them out that way. You're really having that one-on-one conversation. And here's what we find. Oftentimes, that's enough to really bring about change in the workplace. It's when we don't say anything, my friends, that we allow those behaviors to go on, right? If we're being open and honest, all of us, what do we want? Well, we want to be able to work a great job in a great atmosphere, in a great environment, and really provide for our families well. That's some commonality that we all have. And so when we pull people back to that common ground, that commonality, we can really begin to do a great job of building belonging as a result of that, right? So how do you overcome this stuff called bias? It's practicing those 4 tools. Those 4 tools will help you overcome bias. They'll help you be a better team leader, be a better teammate, as well as build better belonging. So as a reminder, what are those tools again? Well, number 1, ask questions. Number 2, challenge your assumptions. Number 3, see the other person. And last but not least, know when and how to speak up. Thank you so much for being here. Practice those tools. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice them, the better you'll be at them. The quicker you'll know how to pull them out, put up that mental stop sign so that you can build phenomenal environments of belonging. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to No Bullshit with Alex Willis, the go-to source for leadership development in the construction industry. I want to just encourage you to subscribe via YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. Please, please, please leave comments and questions that you may have. We would love to hear your feedback about the show. And if you're having a leadership challenge, I want to remind you, we are here for you. Please, please, please write that in so that we can begin to do some research and talk about that subject so that you can go out and be the best leader possible.